Hi, this is Dr. Gary Betticher, and what I'd like to do now is go over the syllabus for the Graduate Database course. And as you can see, I brought it up here on the screen. And a couple things I want to point out to you as we go through the syllabus here. One, you see this date, which is July 27, 2017. That represents the last date that I've modified the syllabus. Whenever I make some significant changes, I typically send out an email regarding those changes and the date that it was changed. Over here is actually you'll see embedded within this video are all these YouTube videos. Now the YouTube videos for each particular set of notes is embedded in the notes, or you can come to the syllabus to see what videos to watch at a particular time. Now over here is my office, which is Delta 171, and phone number, my email, and the suite secretary, Miss Caroline Johnson, and her phone number. I would suggest that in the event sometimes the door is locked to the suite, there's a phone in the hallway. Call the phone 3805 and I'll open the door for you. My office is located below the classroom, which is Delta 242, and as you know, the class meets Wednesday 4 to 6:50 p.m. My office hours for this semester are 1 to 4 on Wednesdays, 1 to 4 on Thursdays, or by appointment. Now, at the time of the creation of this video, I do not know who the teaching assistant or teaching assistants are. Typically, I'll have his or her name, what their email address is, their hours when they'll be available in the computer lab, and typically a picture so you can see what he or she looks like. This is a TA I had in previous semesters named Keshav, very good TA, but doesn't apply at this point. You'll also see in the syllabus a link to a software called Blackboard, and we're currently using Blackboard version 9. If you click on it, it'll take you to Blackboard. Blackboard has a lot of utility, but for this semester we're going to be using it for quizzes, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. The required textbook for this class is by El Masri and Navathi, called Fundamentals of Database Systems by Benjamin Cummings. It's the 7th edition. One question I get asked is, well, can I use the 6th edition or some previous edition? And I'm assuming that you'll be using the 7th edition or whatever the current edition is at the time of this posting. And my suggestion is you're welcome to try previous editions, but you're on your own. If there's questions on the exam based on the 7th edition material in 7th edition not found in earlier editions, well, you're going to be out of luck at that point. So I'd recommend using the 7th edition, but if you want to try something else, that's your call. You'll also see this area here called reference materials. Oracle documentation is very good material I'd recommend looking at. There's software that is available, Visio, SmartDrawer, or the MySQL there. And my observation is that when you use those, at times you might want to use it for one of the assignments. Make sure you turn in a version of like a PDF or Microsoft Word. Typically what happens, students get the trial version, they send me the software based on the trial version. I have to go to the trouble of downloading it, so that's why I will not accept assignments in those particular programs. You see the course description here, and I would describe the course as follows. The first half up to the midterm focuses on database design from the perspective of the database programmer. The second half focuses on databases from the perspective of the database administrator. So in the first half, we'll look at how you go about designing a good database. And the second half will deal with issues such as physical database design, transaction processing, just to name a couple of things. And for this class, the typical graduate student takes maybe full-time 3 classes, and I want you to be prepared to put in 15 to 20 hours per week for this class. My experience is, if you ask students about me, they might say I'm a tough teacher. And I would say that's a fair assessment. I'm tough. But the reason I'm tough is because I care a lot about your education and your success. If I was easy and you got an easy A, you might feel good about it, but you don't know anything. And if you go out for a job, there'll be people who do know something, and they'll get the job and you won't. So I'll do my best to help you learn as much as possible about databases in this class. Upon completion of this class, you're expected to be able to design, develop database applications, and understand the fundamental structure of various database systems. And we'll be focusing primarily on relational databases. This class assumes you've had a prerequisite database. One example is CSCI 4333, and so you either had that undergraduate database or some other undergraduate database at some other institution. Also, this class assumes you've had some data structures. If you've not had those, I would recommend that you consider dropping this class and taking those prerequisites. Normally, this class, it'll be face-to-face, supplemented with quite a few YouTube videos. I've made a total of 38 YouTube videos for this class, not including the ones for this first week. The grading, the appraisal, there'll be assignments. Typically, they count for 15% of your grade. Quizzes, either Blackboard or in class, 5% of your grade. The midterm, 40%, so you want to pay very careful attention to that. The final, 40%. If one of the things I do not like is people who text during class or take cell phone messages. It's very distracting. So please make sure you turn off your cell phone prior to coming into class. Also, in terms of attendance, you're allowed to miss one class. You don't even have to ask. But if you miss more than one class, you're going to lose 2 points for every absence. There is something I have called class preparation policy. The good news is you start with 2 points. During the class, I ask questions in the beginning of the class, and I might say, define first normal form. Now, if I call on a student and he or she knows it, fine. If I call on a student, he or she doesn't know the answer, and I call on the second student who does know the answer, well, the first one loses a point of these 2 points, and the second one gains a point. Now, in the event that 5 students don't know the answer, but the 6th one does, he or she doesn't get 6 points. At most, you get is 1 point. I also have what's called the following. Grades will be based solely on the criteria above. And now, what happens is students sometimes say, well, gee, I expected a higher grade. Please give me a higher grade. Well, it doesn't work that way. Or I had good participation, and I explained how I figured that there. Or I made an improvement from a F to a B, let's say. Or I've put in extra effort. Or I need to avoid probation. Or I'll be on financial, I'll lose my scholarship. Or I'm going to lose a job opportunity. Or training. Or I need to graduate. Or as you can read through those. And so the issue is none of these will cause me to modify your grade. It's very important to pay attention to it. You'll see here I've got my grading policy. Basically, 93 or higher is an A, 90 or higher is A minus, 87 higher is a B plus, 83 higher is a B, and so forth. And one of my mottos is to foster disciplined altruistic passion. And what that means is that as you come into the class, you want to be disciplined, you want to be prepared very well for each given class. I highly recommend printing off the notes at least a week beforehand, going over the notes at least 5 times, underlying things coming into class. Second thing, in terms of altruism, basically altruism is the ability to show a love to humanity, not just the love of yourself, so become less self-centered, less selfish. And the third idea is to have passion for the class or for your career. The idea is if you can't get excited about it, then you've got problems. One question I'd say is, if you won the lottery, let's say $100 million, what would you do with your life? Now, you don't have to tell me, but you might want to think seriously about that question. Because the question behind that is, if money wasn't an object, what would you love to do with your life in terms of time? Maybe it's databases, maybe it's you want to be a chef in a restaurant. I have no idea. But the idea is you're going to be spending decades doing whatever, and so you want to be happy about what you're doing. It's also a type of thing that you might start out in one career, realize it's not for you, and change careers. That's okay. There's an expression that goes like this: you learn in your 20s and you earn in your 30s. And so it's the idea that you might try different careers starting out, but by the time you get to 30, you got to get a little bit more serious about your career. Okay, now we see the schedule and all this color coding stuff. Let me talk about that. You'll see a week-by-week date. This week, we're going to have an overview of the syllabus, talk about the intro, talk about the database lifecycle, and I want to talk about the EER type diagrams. So we'll be doing those types of things. All course materials are located on the Google Drive. Now, to get access to the Google Drive, you need to send me a Gmail address so I can add that to the Google Drive. If you've not done so already, please do it so you can get access to the course materials. Now, on the Google Drive, there are things like the notes, the assignments, for example. You'll see midterm and final questions, and I'll talk about that later. So it's very important to get access to the Google Drive. For the first week, assignment 1A is due on September 13th. Now, the first class should be August 30th. We're not having that. It's been canceled because of the hurricane. But here is September 30th, 2 weeks from Wednesday, and assignment 1A is due. So you'll see within the syllabus the schedule, and the schedule shows assignments, how many points they're worth, and the due date's 4 p.m. beginning of class. So pay very careful attention to that. Also, you'll see on the syllabus assignment, there's like almost very specific tasks you need to do on a week-by-week basis. So this week we're going to read the syllabus, the online orientation, which is available in the Google Drive. We'll go over that in a moment here. You'll see links to videos to watch, and then read Unit 1 of the online notes. And it's the student's responsibility to download the notes, print the notes, and bring them to class. Now, one of the observations I make is the better students, the ones who want to do well in the class, they not only print out the notes and bring them to class, but they also go over the notes and they've underlined things. And I could look out in the classroom and I see that they're underlined. Also, I'd recommend getting a 3-ring binder, probably a 2-inch 3-ring binder, put the notes in there so you keep them in order and that you don't lose the notes. So that's something you want to pay very careful attention to. Now, one of the things to note is that when I say read Unit 1, that refers to the notes. If I say read chapter whatever, that refers to the textbook, the El Masri textbook. So we're going to read chapters 3, 4, and 9 of the textbook, go over the Unit 2 notes, and actually you need to do that for the first week. And then what you'll see are all these quizzes. And the quizzes, I made it very clear, they're red, bold-faced red, yellow background, and I also have quiz dates that you need to pay attention to. So the first quiz, I'm assuming that you might not have ever seen Blackboard. Blackboard's a software which facilitates the quizzes. So the first quiz is due 2 weeks from the first class meeting, which we're not having. And you can take that first quiz as many times as possible. The first quiz is called the Syllabus quiz. And the approach is to get you comfortable with using Blackboard, and you can take the quiz many times as you like. What you need to do at some point is get a perfect score on the quiz before you can advance to other quizzes. Now you'll see other quizzes like chapters 1 and 2 of El-Masri, and all the other quizzes are due at the beginning of class time on whatever given date there is. So you'll see the quizzes due at 4 p.m. on whatever date is given. And what you'll find over time, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here. Let's say on the week of September 27th, Quiz 10 tests you on the Unit 6 online material, due 4 p.m. on October 4th. Now, if we look at October 4th, we're going to go over the Unit 6 material. So one observation I'd expect you to make is that, well, wait a second. We're taking a quiz on something we've not gone over in class. And the reason that I do that is, why am I testing on something you've not gone over? Well, I reverse engineered when I did very well as a master's level student, had a 4.0, and I reverse engineered like, why did I do very well? And one of the things was I was very well prepared prior to a given class. And so what happens is by taking the quiz before coming to class, you will know what you don't know and know what things that you need to learn in the class to kind of fill in any gaps of knowledge that you might be missing. So that's the reason I give the quizzes they need to be completed prior to that specific class. Well, coming back here, so you've got the quizzes, there's corresponding videos. You'll see these videos embedded in the respective set of notes. And there's assignment 1B, more things to read and quizzes to take. You'll see the deadlines for the quizzes on a week-by-week basis. So I try to make it very clear about all the deadlines for quizzes and assignments so that you will not be confused. Typically, quizzes need to be completed by the beginning of class at 4 p.m. and assignments need to be completed and turned in by a given due date. So I'll jump ahead now. Now, one thing I want to point out, assignment 6, that is due Sunday, October 22nd, 7 p.m. via email. Most assignments are due at the beginning of class, but sometimes an assignment might be due on a given Sunday. And if so, you'll see like on October 22nd, Sunday, assignment 6 due 7 p.m. So I try to make it very clear about when assignments are due. You'll also see the midterm is scheduled for Wednesday, October 25th, closed book, closed notes. I'll talk more about that as we get closer. And I want to make you aware of an opportunity, and that is you may want to submit questions for the midterm, and if you do want to submit them, they're due the Tuesday, October 24th, 7 p.m. This is optional. And here's my idea. The idea is that if you come up with questions, and you'll see a template on the Google Drive, if you come up with questions, then it puts you in the perspective of the professor. What did I think was important in the class, along with giving you an opportunity to kind of reflect on what you've done up to that point. Now, a couple things I'll mention. Use the template as I mentioned on Google Drive. Also, strip out any information like your name or student ID number. And the other thing is specify whether you want me to post the questions onto the Google Drive. Some students who are very competitive do not want me to share the questions, and so they put do not share. Others are okay with me sharing the questions. As I said, this chance to submit questions is optional, up to you whether you want to do it or not. So we have the midterm, October 25th, more material to go over, physical database design, transaction processing, currency control, distributed databases, cloud computing, NoSQL we're doing. Thanksgiving, we will not have class. The week after, we talk about big data and Mongo database. And last, we have, on December 6th, we have data warehousing, data mining, a little bit of review. Assignment 8 and 9 are due. And likewise, you can submit questions for the final. And the final exam is on Wednesday, December 13th, 4 p.m. Okay, so that describes the schedule. Let me talk about other policies related to the class. One of which is I take cheating very, very seriously. Let me repeat that. I take cheating very, very seriously. Sometimes students cheat in a class and the professor doesn't do anything about it. But I do, because what happens is if a student cheats in the class and he or she gets away with it, then they're not going to know much. And it's not fair to those people who worked hard in the class. And if a student graduates, let's say, worst case, he or she cheated in all their classes, they go out, look for a job, they have a 4.0, but they know nothing. Then the prospective employer, let's say IBM, says, well, geez, those students from UHCL give high grades and they don't know anything. So it's a very bad reflection on the computer science program at UHCL. So I